Hey folks, welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to completely focus on helper scripts. On the DevOps doctrine, let's go into CloudFormation and let's click on helper scripts. The helper scripts are the best practice when working with EC2 instances individually or the instances in an auto-scaling group. So we're using our helper scripts to send signals back to a stack based on the success or failure of installations on our instances. So they're a great help in configuring and bootstrapping instances or updating instances. Now, these helper scripts are pre-installed on the latest version of the Amazon Linux AMI, and that's in the /opt/aws/bin directory. And they're also available from the Amazon Linux Yum repository. And for Windows 2008 or later, you can install them with Python. So let's talk a little bit about these helper scripts. And the first one we'll talk about is cfn-init. And we've actually used this one already. And cfn-init can fetch and parse template metadata from templates and use that data to install packages, create and write files to disk, start and stop services. So let's go over to our template while we're talking about cfn-init. So again, cfn-init, located here on line 246, is reading metadata, AWS CloudFormation init, within our metadata. Now I want to point out that we have a config set in here as well. And you use a config set when you want to explicitly specify the installation order. So we have a config set called WordPress install, and we are specifying the order that we want to perform our installation. And this makes perfect sense. We're going to install WordPress before we configure it. Now, let's get back to cfn-init, and we have options here: stack, resource, config sets. We're calling out our config set, WordPress install, and a region. You can also specify other things such as an access key, a secret access key, a role, a credential file. Key thing to remember is that only stack and resource are required. So we have to specify the stack name and our resource that we're working with and its web server and EC2 instance. The stack and the resource are specifying where we are retrieving the metadata from. Now, we saw in a previous lesson where our metadata was within a launch configuration. So there's some versatility here, but just remember that cfn-init is reading that metadata wherever it's at. Okay, so that's cfn-init, and we've seen that in action. Let's talk about cfn-signal, and we've used this one as well. So we know that this helper script is used to signal back to a stack a success or failure. We've seen both success and failure, actually. Failure being a timeout. Once actions are complete, we can use this to signal back their success to the stack. And of course, if an action could not complete, we signal back a failure. And again, a failure causes a rollback. And remember, a success increments our count. And if we reach the required number of success count, then our stack creation will continue. And like cfn-init, our only required options are stack and resource. Other options could be success, access key, exit code, role, secret access key. It's not important to memorize all of these. This can be looked up. Just remember that the required options are stack and resource. And of course, we can use cfn-signal with a wait condition. And we did this in the wait condition lesson. This -e, we're getting the exit code from the previous run command, which is cfn-init. This $? Represents that last exit code. One helper script that we haven't worked with yet is cfn-hup. And this helper script is actually a daemon that detects changes in resources in metadata and runs actions when a change is detected. So the actions are user specified, and cfn-hup is very handy if we want to make configuration updates on running instances. Now, we could specify a config directory, but in this case, it's pretty much spelling it out. The location of this cfn-hup configuration file. And this configuration file actually specifies the stack name. You may be wondering about where's the stack name. Well, this configuration file actually specifies the stack name or a stack ID. Now, important thing to know is that we can specify the contents of this configuration file in line in the template. So we still need to tell the daemon what to do. And we can do that in a hooks file. And we do that in the hooks file with triggers. Triggers provide a list of conditions to detect. This post update, there could be multiple triggers separated by commas, post update, post remove, post add. The path represents the path of the metadata objects, and then we specify an action. So this is a shell command to run if the hook is triggered. And in this case, we're going to use cfn-init again. So it's going to go back to that metadata. Remember, there was some kind of an update, so maybe there's a new package to install. cfn-init is going to go get that. Okay, and there's one final helper script. It is cfn-get-metadata. And it's actually not used in this template, but its usage is pretty straightforward. So it's used to get a metadata block from CloudFormation and print it out to standard output. And the format is cfn-get-metadata. Bunch of options are available. Access key, secret access key, credential file, stack name, resource. All right, so that's a bit more thorough coverage of our helper scripts for the DevOps Pro certification exam. It's key to just understand what each of the helper scripts do. So again, we're always thinking in terms of use cases. So if you need a helper script to install packages, you're thinking cfn-init. You want to signal success or failure back to your stack, cfn-signal. You want to be responsive, detect changes in your metadata, and run actions when a change is detected, cfn-hup. Printing out metadata. So cfn-get-metadata. Just know and understand the use cases for each of the helper scripts. To conclude this lesson, we're going to build a stack using this template. It will be a single instance WordPress site. We'll provide a key pair, instance type, SSH location, database name, database user, database password, root password. So those are all the parameters we will enter when we start stack creation. We have some mappings for instance types and also region, resources, security group. There's our web server, EC2 instance, and there's our helper scripts. And note part of our config set install WordPress, PHP, MySQL. There's our web server. And here's the last part of our config set, configure WordPress. So some MySQL commands, and notice it's simply doing a test to make sure that the root account can log into MySQL, thereby verifying its installation. There's our user data creation policy, which we've talked about. And very importantly, our output is going to be the URL to our site. All right, so I'm going to switch screens. I'm going to go to the AWS Management Console. Okay, so let's go into CloudFormation and let's go to Design Template. Let's go to the Template tab, and I'm just going to paste in our WordPress template. So we've thoroughly investigated this template. We're just worried about the output now, our WordPress site. Let's validate and create our stack. Click Next. Stack name, database password, database root password, DB user. We'll just go T2 small. There's our key pair, and we'll just leave SSH location as is. The stack's not going to be up very long at all. Next through options and create. And let's refresh and keep an eye on things. All right, so our stack creation's in progress. We've already created a security group. This stack builds pretty quickly. Okay, our web server's being built. And our stack creation is complete. So let's verify. Let's go to Outputs. And there's our website URL. Open link in new tab. There we go. There's our site, ready for configuration. So with that, we've completed this lesson. We looked at helper scripts in depth, and we use those helper scripts in a template to build a WordPress site. So go ahead and mark this lesson complete, and let's move on to the next.